Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's The Podcast Academy, aka TPA Masterclass, with fantastic folks from Jade Media. I'm going to quickly introduce them. We have Alosi, who is a brand strategist, a cultural marketing expert, and a multicultural marketing expert and TikTok evangelist, as you will see. Before founding Jade, Alosi had led teams and initiatives at Essence, Time Inc., Mike, and Afropunk. So we're really among great experts here in terms of all the things we're going to talk about and more. In addition, we have the wonderful Jolene Crixell, who is a strategic marketing expert and pop culture addict, joining friends here. Jolene, prior to co-founding Jade, worked also at Essence, Time Inc., Meredith, Bloomberg Media, and Afropunk. What a coincidence. I wonder where y'all met before. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to our wonderful experts here. Thank you so much, Jade Media, Alosi, and Jolene. Special shout out to Christy Mirabal for putting us in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you to Christy. Again, shout out to Christy. But thank you to the Podcast Academy and to everyone who's joined our webinar today. As you know, as Amanda mentioned before, I am a TikTok evangelist. So in true evangelism fashion, don't be surprised if I get a little preachy. So hold on just a moment. I believe everyone can see my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
It looks great.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So welcome to Building Community for your podcast with TikTok. We are so excited to present this to you again as TikTok evangelists. So some quick overview on who are we, before Jolene and I, we've co-founded Jade Media, and one of our missions is to connect brands with the culture. We really work to help companies and creators communicate their brand, find audiences, and build community online. So we've worked with brands such as Stitcher Podcast, with Meta, to help them provide 360 marketing strategies online and offline, so with an emphasis on digital media. And this year we were selected as a part of the 2022 TikTok Support Black Business Cohort, which gave us lots of great insights that we're hoping to pass along to our partners and our clients to help them get onto TikTok. Okay, so before we start, I want to talk about kind of like the stages of TikTok acceptance. I feel like most people are somewhere in this kind of ecosystem. First, it's like, what the hell is TikTok? And then when they find out what TikTok is, they're kind of unbothered by it. They're like, okay, that's for kids. Next thing you know, they are watching TikToks and other platforms, whether they're being texted them or they're watching them on Instagram. The next thing you know, you're downloading the TikTok app. Now, this is where your TikTok addiction could enter the chat or could leave the chat, but just something to be aware of. And then in order to get a more personalized feed, a lot of people start creating their TikTok account. Maybe they'll even start making videos in drafts. And then after a while, you'll start seeing people make videos live. I will say that TikTok, there are more people who are watching TikToks than are making TikToks, but the hope is that for you as podcasters, you will get to this last stage. So some common reasons that people avoid TikTok. I kind of wanted to get this out there and if this might be any of your reasons, to be able to give you a reason not to avoid TikTok. So the first one is a lot of people don't see TikTok as an app for them. It's a kid's app, it's for dancing and singing. And while that may have been how TikTok started, as a, musically evolution, TikTok is now an entertainment platform that's driven by niche communities. I've also heard people say that I don't want to use another platform. I've got enough social media platforms as that I'm already using. And I think that that is fair. One of the things, I think TikTok is very aware that it's a, pretty addictive experience. And so they have lots of settings within their app to be able to set screen times, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. There's also creators that come onto your feed that's like, hi, maybe it's time to go touch grass. And if you feel like you're one of those people, I feel like when Dora comes on my screen, I'm like, time to go outside. Then again, this is an opportunity to kind of limit how much time you're spending on TikTok if that is a concern. Some folks are worried that they don't have the right equipment to start making TikTok videos. And really all you need is your phone, the app, and really good lighting. And for those, I know we're talking to podcasters, for those who are not that interested in showing their face or can't show their face, know that there are filters that can obscure your face. You can work with influencers if you don't feel as comfortable. And you can also use the complex editing tools within TikTok so that you don't necessarily always have to show your face, although we do recommend it because TikTok is a face-first app. And then maybe, you don't understand the culture of TikTok and how to use it. And that's the purpose of this class, to really understand what's the culture of TikTok, what are some best practices to use that. And the hope hope is that after you leave this class, you'll feel more comfortable, at least browsing TikTok, but hopefully creating content to promote your podcast. Okay, so before you TikTok, we want to kind of set the, the state of the union. Again, TikTok is a platform that uses the most of social media video to social mobile video to inspire creativity and to bring joy. That's the two things that they're most kind of centered on. I think it's a wonderful place to build community, to showcase your passions, and then to also participate in trends. So the first thing to know is that TikTok is an entertainment platform. It's a short form video app versus kind of like a social media platform where you're connecting with your friends and family. Not saying that that doesn't happen on TikTok, but TikTok is more about the entertainment and the communities that surround that. And so one of the first things that I recommend people to do is to window shop to understand the TikTok world. You don't necessarily even have to have an account to do this. So see what trends, see what storytelling, and see what formats tend to do very well on your Explore page. And then the next thing to know is that community is the cornerstone of TikTok. Trends kind of come and go, and I think that's what most people know TikTok is for, the trends, but TikTok is really centered around a community. And so there's always an audience that are looking for their people, whether that's foodies, whether people who are into dogs and cats, whether people are into science. There are always people kind of coalescing into these communities. And again, that's something that you should have, that should excite you as a podcaster. And then the four things that TikTok is always telling creators is to be curious, to be real, to be creative, and to be entertaining / engagement. So what does this mean? First things first is that there really is no penalty for failure on TikTok. I know people like the algorithm, is suppressing me. And yes, the algorithm does suppress content if it does not feel that it is safe for their audience. But for the most part, any suppression is a signal to the audience and to the algorithm that, hey, maybe I should try something different or try something new. Don't be afraid to experiment on TikTok. Every piece of content you make is a signal point, is a data point to either your audience to get to know you or the algorithm to get to know you. The next thing is that authenticity is key. Perfection is really shunned on TikTok. People don't take themselves too seriously. You would think that there was an agenda for selling bonnets on TikTok. That's how authentic they are on TikTok. Again, perfection is shunned. I think the high glossy content that we often see on other platforms, people want to see a more human, more raw element on TikTok. The next thing is creative storytelling wins. TikTok celebrates storytellers to find interesting ways to be able to present stories. So, whether that's the beginning, middle, end of your stories, you'll see a lot on TikTok. People start with the end of their story and then we'll go to the beginning of their story. So how can you find new ways to tell stories? And the last thing is to be additive. How can you be entertaining? How can you be engaging? How can you create content that is enhancing the social experience of those who are scrolling on TikTok? So my last kind of like evangelism is that we do need podcasters on TikTok. Pod Talk, I still believe, is still in its nascent stages compared to the other communities. And TikTok as a marketer is an incredible, incredible tool for brand awareness, to build community, and then also to build your brand on social media. Your passions are already being discussed on TikTok. So how can you join the conversation that's already happening, create a community, or even join the community that, again, already having conversations around your passion points on TikTok? And then this is, I think, another great way to build your brand outside of audio, so that you don't only have an audio brand, but you have this audio brand with strong social platforms that make this more of a 360 brand. Hey, if you have a live event, that's even more 360, but how can you make sure the extensions of your brand are as strong as the core part of your brand? And then the last part is that I think that this is an excellent, excellent way to reach audiences that are not necessarily predisposed to podcasts, so much younger audience on TikTok. So this is a way to find new podcast listeners, bring them into the ecosystem, make them aware of your brand, instead of kind of, I think within podcasting, we sometimes are talking to other people who love podcasts, but how do we bring kind of that new audience into the fold? So find your people. You want to find the communities on TikTok that intersect with what you create. At the center of Pod Talk, again, there's no bottom to the communities that they have, but some of the ones that we think that align with a lot of podcasts that we see: wellness, politics, finance, science, pop culture. Again, these conversations are already happening. How can you align yourself with those communities? All right, so quick TikTok 101 for those who may not know anything about the platform. We did want to give you some kind of, an introduction to the platform so that you kind of know what the fundamentals are. The first fundamental is the For You page. This is TikTok's home base where the algorithm is delivering curated content to your front door. You can toggle between kind of a discovery feed with For You or with your following tab, which will curate all of the people that you're following. The sounds tab. Now, sounds are so important on TikTok because sounds kind of power the app and the creativity on the app. So from meme style sound bites to clips of the latest hits, you can really find a sound to help you tell your story. Now, there are two places to be able to get sounds. You can get it at the top of the record screen, that plus button that you see down here. Or you can also see here, if you were to click this sound, that will take you also to a sound library to add to your TikTok. The next kind of ways to communicate and to enhance your TikToks are stitching. Stitching is when you're reacting to another creator's content by clipping it and positioning your video directly after theirs. So what you'll often see is people will ask a question like for here, what's a scam that's become so normalized that we don't even realize it's a scam? You clip that and then you can respond with your feedback. And then duet is collaborating with another creator by positioning your video side by side. So this is for you to be able to provide real-time reaction. I love Kel's account because he makes everything look so delicious. And again, this is a creator who their entire account is duetting. And then effects. Effects are such a cool way to explore creativity on the app, ranging from green screen to beauty filters to slow zoom and more. There are so many effects. Again, they're always creating effects. They actually have given the opportunity for people to create effects, which can also be something that you could use as a podcaster if you see fit. And you'll see here, you can get the effect house, again, also from the top of, if you click that plus screen, and you'll see the effect house. And you'll also see they have a trending section here. So you'll see what are the top effects that other people are using so that you can use them as well if you see that necessary. Okay, so now we are making TikToks. I want to give some best practices to making TikToks because TikTok is a super powerful video and editing tool. It's, it's user friendly, so to say, but it's almost no bottom to the remixes of whether, video, text, effects, stickers, Q&A. So just know, even if you're looking at TikTok and you're a little bit inundated, like, okay, there's a lot going here, know that it is meant to be deep and wide so people can essentially play around with the tool and create stories that make the most sense for them. So the basics of a TikTok, and I think this is just so important because I see a lot of people doing this, is to make sure that it's vertical 9:16. I see a lot of folks doing kind of the 16:9 and doing the black screens at the top and the bottom. If you're going to do that, essentially make sure you add a human element, but whatever you can do to make it vertical 9:16. Also, TikTok is a very sound on platform. So how can you add sound, whether that's a voiceover, whether that's a sound from the library, or that is just sound from the video that you're already recording? How do you make sure that you're framing the shot again within that 9:16 to make sure that it looks really well? Using text intentionally, we'll talk about that, and then keeping it short as relative based on the story you're telling. So the next one of the most important things I think of making a TikTok is how can you add a human element? That could be being face first. I think that's probably the number one way I could recommend. But are there things that you can add in order to let people know that there's a human behind the content that's being posted here so that people can kind of feel that community element? So the first thing that we want to always tell people to do is that first 1 to 3 seconds of your video. I think this is a best practice for all social media video. But how do you catch your audience in that first 3 seconds of your video? Again, that creative storytelling that you see on TikTok, where people will put the end of their story at the beginning of their story and then qualify the rest of their story. That's the hook, so to say. How can you make sure that your hook is very catching within the first 1 to 3 seconds? One way to kind of hack this is to use text with intention. I think that more people need to add headlines to summarize their video. Think of it almost like a lean back, almost like reading the paper. Is that when you have a headline on your video, people are going to at least stop to read your headline and you'll catch them in that first 1 to 3 seconds. And the hope is through reading your headline, hearing the audio that you've included with your TikTok, is that you'll be able to catch them to be able to get them through that entire video. So using text with intention and headlining your video in a cool way, and not just being like, oh, this is episode 3 with this artist. How can you say this is when this is when Beyonce knew she was a star. I'm making that up. Clearly I'm in the beehive. But again, how can you summarize what's going to happen in the video and then qualify it with your content in a really cool, interesting way? Another great way to use text with intention is through subtitles. I recommend if you're taking a video, to use the subtitle tool within TikTok, because that allows you to be searchable, as opposed to editing outside of the app, bringing it into the app, because essentially you won't be able to be as easily searched in TikTok. TikTok, I'm not sure if you know this, but is starting to become the Google for Gen Z. So if there are things and words and people and phrases in your video, and you use the TikTok captioning tool, the TikTok captioning tool will index that within its search. So it helps you to become more discoverable again, along the things that are within your video. And then the last thing is to make sure that your post caption is optimized with a good video, a good summary of what's in the video, and you're including hashtags that make sense. So again, this is great for discoverability, for people, for the user experience of those who are watching the video, and to make sure, again, you're using text with as much intention on TikTok. The next kind of best practice is to use TikTok native tools. This is another kind of human element hack, whether that be green screen, where you can take a photo or video and insert yourself in that. Again, that's very face first. Q&A, using live, if you get to 1,000 followers, different transitions and effects. Using those native tools is another kind of human element that signals to TikTok, this is a human that has posted this. Also to your audience, is a human that's posted this, unlike the other platforms where people just post things and then they leave. They're not really interacting with the community. So you want to always, again, bring that human element so you can see it, so that you can be positioned as part of the community. The last two things that I want to bring up is this TikTok Creative Center. I don't know what's going to happen when I click out to this, hopefully nothing crazy. So TikTok has a creative center that you can see the top trending hashtags, you can see the top trending sounds. Sorry, my internet is. So yeah, so you can see here the top hashtags, songs, creators, and TikTok videos within the Creative Center. And again, we'll send this out in the leave behind to use as inspirations to create your own TikTok videos. All right, great. And then the last thing is posting regularly. I'm not one of those marketers that's going to tell you to post every day or multiple times a day. I think quality over quantity. If you post 2 to 3 times a week, and essentially post regularly, you want to get the algorithm to understand who you are, but you also want your audience to be like, oh, there's that person, there's that face that I know, like, trust, resonate with. And it creates data points to understand, oh, okay, this is the type of content that they create. These are the type of audiences that they attract when they create that. Okay, so now you're making TikToks. The next thing to think about is, like, how am I going to tell stories on TikTok? So again, I'm going to belabor this. You're going to hear this several times, is be a person first. How can you lead with your face? If you can't lead with your face, how can you lead with your unique voice and your unique story to be as true to the app and the community building nature of the app? And then the next thing you want to do is establish your voice. Either, I'm sure you all have your own voices from your podcast. So how can you bring that over to TikTok? And your voice is as dynamic as you are. We're all humans, we're complex. So it doesn't have to just be one voice. You can be informative and funny. You can be aspirational and intimate. Again, how do you create that cocktail that makes the most sense for what your voice is, so that when your audience is interacting with you, they know this is what I can trust this person for. The next thing is to create original content. Now, creating content, I know people try to act as if it's easy. Creating content is laborious if you are not strategic with it. So if you can create original content for TikTok, that's always going to be the North Star, recording the content in app. But if you can't, because of course, you may need to, remix the outfit a bit. How can you add human elements to make it feel original, make it feel native to the platform? So that could be a green screen, that could be a headline, that could be, hey, I just did this really cool commercial that I love. Check it out. And then that's that beautiful polished commercial. How can, again, you add that human element to it? And then we have two kind of leave behinds here, kind of considering the different styles that win on TikTok. So this is an article for TikTok. They've identified 4 storytelling types that work. 1 is to imitate, that's writing the existing trends. 2 is to interact, that's engaging with the TikTok community, asking questions, doing the Q&As, being in lives. Then interpret, that's taking the existing trends and reworking them with with new sounds and reinventing. So inventing, that could be creating your own style, that could be creating your own community, creating new questions. And so you'll see imitating, interacting, interpreting, and inventing, you'll see that kind of come through in a lot of the different TikTok storytelling types. And then this is another leave behind on tips to promote your podcast. Okay, so I want to show you guys a quick TikTok. Hopefully you guys can see this.
I could go into heavy detail, and I will go into heavy detail. I could go into heavy detail, and I will go into heavy detail.
Awesome. So I just kind of wanted to take you through what makes that a great TikTok. So first, it uses text with intention. It has a headline and it's summarizing what you're going to experience within the video. It also entertains the audience and contextualizes the podcast content. The podcast is mentioned. It talks about something that's happening on the podcast that you have to know or watch to understand. This video was full screen. It's vertical within frame. It's face first. It's showing his unique personality and his face. The video is as short as necessary. It's using TikTok tools. You know, they've tagged Pen in the video. Again, whatever TikTok tools you can use, filters, tagging people, captioning. They have relevant post captions and they have relevant hashtags, and they're also using a trending sound. So again, this is a really great TikTok. Of course, this is not the only anatomy of a great TikTok, but if you are able to include these things within your TikTok, you'll start to see a little bit of a lift in your performance. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Jolene to talk about creating mutually beneficial content.
Awesome. So now that you have an idea of kind of what goes into creating a TikTok, we wanted to give you some content inspiration as it pertains to podcasts specifically. So we always like to think of content as having a mutually beneficial strategy behind it. So what that means is obviously your content, you have a means to an end, right? You want to get people to listen to your podcast. You want to get them off platform. You want to get them engaged, follow you to further your brand and what you're building. But it should also benefit the audience and help them, you know, inspire them, inform them, or add value in some way to their lives. I think we all know by now that like coming on and saying, hi, I have a podcast and you should listen to it is like not the best way to get people to listen to your podcast, right? And especially on TikTok. Alosi talked a lot about how, you know, TikTok is a community platform. It's a face-first human platform. So there is a little bit of like an allergy to straightforward, like hardcore advertising, right? So you really, when you're on the platform, of course you're pushing your podcast, of course you're advertising in a way, but you really want to make it feel human and additive. So a recommended content mix should really kind of incorporate a couple different ways that you're going to do this. The goal, like Alosi said before, is really quality over quantity. Quantity is not the game on TikTok. If you have a million TikToks, but they don't resonate, it's not going to get you far. So I'm going to take you through a couple different examples of how to iterate your content and some creative ways to put forward what you're talking about. I'm not going to click into all of these because we would be here for a while, but I'm going to kind of talk you through what's going on in each one. So the first way to talk about your podcast without talking about your podcast in a way that feels over the top is editorializing a specific episode. I love this example. This is from a podcast called Maintenance Phase, which is about diet culture. And this is actually something that a fan created, but something that a creator could easily create to promote their podcast. So this says, using my Bragg's liquid aminos after listening to Maintenance Phase this week. And she's making kind of like a dissatisfied face, right? So this tells you what the episode's about. It piques some curiosity of like, well, what's wrong with the liquid aminos? Like, what's going on there, right? It feels very of TikTok. It's got that full screen and it mentions the podcast name in the text that's on the screen. So I think this does a really great job of pushing awareness of the podcast, giving context to not only what the podcast is about, but what the episode's about, and really piquing that interest and just feels like TikTok. So I love this one. I think editorializing specific episodes can go really far because you've already done the really hard parts of creating amazing, engaging content, right? It's just communicating it and adapting it to this platform. So I love this example. And I think this could be replicated in a lot of different ways for different content types and different themes. The next one is reinforcing your expertise, either as a host or, you know, doing it for your guests. But I think this is really important. people are going to be seeing you for the first time on the platform. They want to think, oh, this is someone who knows what they're talking about, right? And you can put yourself forward as, I'm a pop culture fanatic. This is what I do. I know all about it. Follow me for more, right? Is kind of what you're saying. I love this example. This is from a podcast, So Bad It's Good. And if you know this moment, if you know, you know, very unfortunate moment for Fergie. We won't get into it, but I love that he did this So Bad It's Good moments in pop culture history. So what he's doing here is saying, I'm someone who can define like these great moments in pop culture history, and I'm going to curate them for you. So it pushes the podcast name forward. And it's positioning him as an expert and someone whose point of view you want, right? Whether you agree or disagree, or you want to talk about it more in the comments, and then you eventually want to listen to the podcast because you trust this person's perspective and like their sense of humor. It might align with yours. So I love this one. I think any kind of doing those like rankings or lists are a really easy way to establish yourself as someone who knows what they're talking about and make people interested and wanting to see more on the platform and off platform in your podcast. The other one is showcasing the personality and interests of the host, multiple hosts or team. This one I'm going to kind of talk you through. It's really cute. It's from Podcrush. They have 3 hosts, and it's showing them each giving the other hosts like a little lesson. So one person's talking about their perspective on 30 Rock. Another girl's talking about how much she loves TikTok. And then Penn Badgley is like, here's how to turn your phone off because he doesn't want to be online at all, right? So I think it kind of makes, you know, users and audience members identify like, who am I in this, right? Am I a Penn? Am I a Nava? Am I a Sophie, right? And it gives them that kind of attachment and a little bit more intimacy in learning about who you are. The one thing I would add to this is obviously adding like the podcast name in the text, but I think it does a really good job of kind of creating and giving a window into their individual personalities, which, like Alosi said, this is such a community, human first platform. People want to know who you are. It's not enough that you're a podcast host. They want to know your tastes and who you are and get a little bit more of that insight. Content that promotes the overall podcast. So from not just, you know, a specific episode or specific moment, right? But content that promotes what you're doing. I do think sometimes people can create so much content, it may get lost, right? So you do want to mix in that content that's like, hi, I have a podcast, come find more, right? This is from a podcast called Fluently Forward that's about celebrity gossip and blind items. So she does this kind of funny little like skit saying, you know, my podcast is about celebrity gossip and blind items. And it's like, what else could it be about? Conspiracy theories? Like she kind of rides on an existing trend, but to tell the audience straightforward, this is what I do. So if you've been following this girl and you're like, I like the tea she's spilling, I like what she's doing, let me check out her podcast because it's about what I'm watching on TikTok. So again, doing that in a way that is native to the platform and doesn't feel like I'm coming on to like give you an infomercial, but really is of the community, but gets that message across is great. Spotlighting similar voices. So I love this example. This is another fan one that I think could easily be replicated and kind of added on to a creator account. So this one is from Las Culturistas, and on the podcast, they asked their guests, when did you know culture was for you? And this is a fan taking it upon themselves to answer that question, which I think is so cool. So when it comes to spotlighting similar voices, you know, as someone, as a host and as a creator of your own account, you could stitch with this, you could duet it, show up in the comments and, you know, say, I love this, interact with it and kind of bring up that other content that people are creating that aligns with yours, I think is always a win for community building and also just for, you know, making people feel seen and heard when they talk about your podcast. And then providing a peek behind the scenes. So I think, you know, as we're hammering home over and over again, this is a human platform. People want to know who you are. I think people really love those peek behind the scenes. This is from a podcast called We Are Man Enough, and it says POV, our producer looking at Justin Baldowning's emotional support water bottle ruining the shot. So this is just a quick, funny, like TikTok, you know, it's not high lift in terms of content. It's content you already have, but it's giving people that like other view of us creating the podcast, showing some humor, highlighting talent, right? So it does a couple different things subtly, but also does it in a really natural way. Don't ever underestimate. People really like seeing the behind the scenes, the making of. They like knowing what you're up to, and also always letting your sense of humor shine through. So those are just some different, content types, things you could explore to play with, but it really gets around that, like, I'm here to promote a podcast and making content that aligns with TikTok and the community that you're in, but benefits both the audience and you. So now we're going to take you through some steps for like building your brand. Obviously, this is not exhaustive, right? When we do work of building brands and cultivating them over time, there's a lot of things that go into it, but we wanted to give you some top line ideas for TikTok. And by no means are these also like supposed to be linear, right? Like all these things are happening at the same time. So we want to talk about inviting your existing audience on to TikTok with you. I think that's super important, whether it's the podcast or it's, your audience on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, etc. Let them know that you're heading on to TikTok and bring them along for the ride. Inviting them to explore and connect with you in new and exciting ways, I think is like a great opportunity for you and for your existing fans, and brings them deeper into your community. So making a podcast announcement and including TikTok in your sign off, I think is like a super easy way to do this, or in your episode description, I think could be a great way to just kind of get people aware. Creating an announcement that you can post across social platforms, I think is a great idea too, just to kind of let people know. I think this is something that is also not like a one and done, like I'm heading over to TikTok, see you there, bye, right? But a kind of feeding of content of like, maybe taking a TikTok video and, putting it on your Instagram story and cutting it off and saying, to see the rest, come join me on TikTok, right? So you can be clever with it. And it's something, as you build your TikTok following, you can kind of feed to those other platforms as you go. And then doing exclusive activations on TikTok. You could say, I'm going deeper into this episode on TikTok. So come follow me there. Come see me, come join me, right? You could say, I'm doing live Q&As. One caveat, you do need 1,000 followers to do live Q&As. So just FYI, but I think doing any kind of exclusive activation or content that you are doing specifically on TikTok, the people that want more will make the leap. Who knows where they are in their phases of TikTok acceptance, right? But I think you can probably kind of move them along the pipeline to get you all over there. And I think just one last thing about bringing those followers over, I think this is really important because it kind of gives you like a jump start on TikTok, right? If you have a couple people there that are engaging and boosting your content, it encourages you to keep going. It helps your stats too, and it helps, to see other people that are already involved. But this is a continuous process. Not everyone's going to make it, right? Or they may make it in like 3 years and we're like, where have you been? But it's just a continuous, thing to do. And I think it can really benefit you, especially at the beginning, to have some people there with you. So then we're going to go into finding new audiences. I think obviously TikTok is a huge discovery platform. There are people that we had no idea who they were, and now they're like influencers, right? Just off TikTok during the pandemic or after, right? So this is a real opportunity to expand your existing audience, bring new people into your community, and reach people who didn't know they needed you. They just haven't found you yet. There are people I follow on Instagram, and they're like, I've grown so much on TikTok, and I'm like, how did everyone not know about you? People did not know about them, but they found them on TikTok. So it's huge. No matter how big you are, there are new audiences to find on TikTok. One of the first ways to do this and to kind of get into this is using historical data and your previous wins to inform what may be attractive to new audiences. So if you're like, oh my God, I'm on TikTok, where do I start, right? Thinking about what is like your best podcast episode that got the best reception, that you got amazing feedback on, or something you did on social media that really translated into conversions, right? So using that historical data will inform what may be attractive to new audiences. Lead with your best, lead with what you feel passionate about and confident about, and that will be a really great entry point to bring people into the fold. Collaborating with creators that new audiences trust. So I think, in like the Instagram world and the influencer world, we're like, okay, you have to pay to play, right? To collaborate. And of course, always compensate creators for like direct work they're doing for you. But on TikTok, you have an opportunity to position yourself with other creators who may have authority and audiences in really seamless ways. And that goes back to that stitching and that duetting, where you can all of a sudden be side by side with someone who has a ton of audience and knows what they're talking about. And by doing that, you're saying, we're in the same community. We are in dialogue with each other, which is a huge opportunity. So once you dive into your individual, niche community, you'll find the people that audiences trust. Start stitching with them, show up in their comments, duet with them, react to their content. And that's just a huge positioning opportunity that is so easy to take advantage of on TikTok. Using priority tools to appeal to the algorithm for growth. So like Alosi kind of talked about before, the TikTok algorithm, it's not going to punish you, right? Like it wants to get to know you, but there are some accelerating tools you can use. TikTok Live being a huge one. Like we said, once you get to that 1,000 followers, we think this is a fantastic way to grow your TikTok audience and then obviously bring them over and convert to podcast audience. But before you can, get to that feature, there are other things you can do. Those trending filters, trending sounds, trending hashtags are amazing ways to just kind of ride waves and, get on them while you can. Trending hashtags is an interesting one, I will say, on TikTok. It's so interesting. When I first got on TikTok, I was like, why are people using these like random brand ad campaign TikTok hashtags, right? But that's actually normal in TikTok culture to kind of hashtag, things that may not be exactly correlate to your content, but are part of a trending moment. So you'll see a lot of people use hashtags like, I love Lay's or whatever. And you're like, what does that have to do with White Lotus? But it's just part of bringing it onto that wave and boosting it in the algorithm. So don't be afraid to do that. It might feel awkward at first because you're like, this doesn't make sense to what I'm talking about. But I promise you it's normal on TikTok and it's just another little boost you can give yourself. And then always providing your original perspective as an expert across passion points to be a beacon to fellow enthusiasts. So this kind of goes back to that other, positioning yourself as an expert within your individual niche will always draw new people to you and start to see you as an authority and then follow you further down that funnel into the more long form, rich experience. And then cultivating your community. So this is something that is an ongoing process, right? You always are looking to deepen your relationship with your community by providing new avenues for connection and really creating like a knowledge share ecosystem where you're not just talking to people, you're hearing them too, and you're creating a community together. So this is like so simple, but goes so far. Showing up and creating dialogue and comments on your videos is critical, right? So people are talking to you, talk back to them, like it. People want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to feel acknowledged. And I think also showing up in other people's comments, right? If you find people who are talking about something that's related, to what you do, adding your perspective. I wouldn't go into anyone's comments and be like, check out my podcast right now, right? Like that might not be the best way to kind of build that organic relationship, but adding your perspective and being in dialogue with people will always go far. Using your call to actions intentionally to encourage feedback from your followers. As marketers, we always say like, you have got to tell people like what to do. As a viewer, I don't think to, necessarily follow someone or comment my experience, etc. You want to give people permission and give people direction to take the actions that you want them to take. So if you want to hear people's perspectives on when they knew culture was for them, call that out. Whether that's saying that, verbally, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, I think using the text can also be a great add-on. It gives it that like native of the platform feel and just gives people permission to really create community and dialogue with you. And then encouraging your audience to stitch with you. When people stitch, you are always going to be at the first couple of seconds of that content. So it's free for, that you're always going to be included in that, and it goes out to their audience too. So it's such a great tool to not only dialogue with people, but also like increase awareness and show you as an authority that people are responding to and talking to about your topic of expertise. And then maximizing podcast conversion. So again, this is an ongoing process to ensure that your audience is engaging with the podcast, bringing them deeper and along for the more long form experience. So intentionally using text and image branding within your video will boost awareness. That's why I called out in those content examples, the ones who reference their podcast name within the text, amazing, right? Like do more of that because it's just going to put the name forward and just get people more aware and more likely to take action. Using deliberate call to actions, again, telling people what to do, telling them to access the link in bio. You do have to have 1,000 followers for them to be able to click through. But it is really important that you tell people, check out my podcast for, more on this, right? They're not going to know if you don't tell them. And again, if you don't feel comfortable saying it, using the text goes a long way. And also like pinning a link when you have access to that in comments as well is also great, or pinning the the URL is also awesome to do. Using hashtags for discoverability are also great. There are a lot of people that are going onto TikTok to look for podcasts to listen to. So using like podcasts for women, podcasts about XYZ, right? Is a great way to get people who are looking for that podcast experience on TikTok over to the other side. And yeah, so then we also wanted to talk about capitalizing on cultural moments. Obviously, you all have your own niches, but creating a content calendar for the year will really help you prepare to ride those waves of relevant cultural moments and content opportunities. This will obviously change based on your interests, the alignments, and current events. So if you're doing a wellness podcast, New Year is obviously like a huge time for you, right? So you can think ahead and create content that is relevant to that time frame. Award season, if you're a pop culture person, that's going to be huge. Maybe you do like your favorite Oscar moments, and so on and so forth. I put this example here that I love so much because it's such a great example of capitalizing on a current of the moment conversation. This is also from the We Are Man Enough podcast, and it says White Lotus characters and the Man Enough podcast episode they should be listening to by the pool. I love this because I have a deep need to psychoanalyze everyone on the show. And I think this is a great portal into that and just seamlessly promotes their podcast. So as you can see, this will change, this will evolve based on who you are and what you're doing. But I think the more you plan is the more you can also react to things as they come. So don't be afraid to plan and kind of think through that content, but also don't be afraid to just be like, I'm watching White Lotus. I can, do something about this on TikTok really quick. So take advantage of it all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jolene. And so this next slide, again, is another slide that we will include, in our leave behind, but it's kind of talking through creators for inspiration. TikTok's creators are a great source of inspiration for how to create compelling content, and they're also great partners, either like Jolene said, to stitch with, to be a rising tide, or you can use them to expand your reach through their vetted audiences because they have also been building audiences that they trust. So we've included some podcasts. We include, of course, PodCrush because we think that this is a podcast that we've been working with that has used a lot of these tactics that you see within this presentation to be able to grow, to be able to see growth not only on their TikTok but within their podcast. Sibling rivalry podcast, I'm going to call that out because I think that they are such a great example of how you can use just your phone paired with the podcast audio to create some really hilarious moments that showcase your enthusiasm, that showcase your personality, and showcase the dynamic between kind of the talent on your podcast. I also want to call out the R&B Money podcast. They do really, really great stories of giving people not only behind the scenes looks into kind of how they make their podcast, but into just the overall making of R&B music from the past to present. And then I included some creators here like Dara Star Tucker and Miriam Tinney and Patrick Hicks, who do really, really good examples of how you can take your deeply reported content that you're using to make your podcast and turn them into TikToks that serve the audience. And then we also want to include here some storytelling formats to consider. Again, once you window shop on TikTok for a while, you'll start to see certain types of storytelling rise to the top. One that we think that will be super helpful for podcasters is green screen, whether green screen photo or green screen video, so that you can place yourself and react to the content that you're making, or someone else can do that. Also taking gems from the podcast, how can you put, within first 3 seconds or within a 15-second clip, something that really showcases your expertise, your personality, so on and so forth. I think that behind the scenes, day in the life, slice of life is also really great for podcasters, collaborating and responding with people who are already super fans of your podcast. They're on TikTok, they might be making content from your podcast. How can you essentially be in community with them on the platform? And then vetted recommendations, I think, is also great for people who are super highly passionate. How can you recommend new things, places, spaces, tips, tricks for people within your passion point to try. So again, we'll send this afterwards that you can click through and see all these examples. All right, so that is, I know we have about 10 minutes left, excuse me. So that is the end of the presentation. Of course, this is kind of like our shameless plug for Work with Jade. So you have an idea of kind of what we do. These presentations, we love giving them to podcast creators, podcast hosts, social media teams, podcast producers, and really help to coach people and creators on how to effectively tell their stories and create organic TikTok content. We love to develop social strategies to help overall across platforms. How do you find new audiences? How do you grow your community? How do you convert people to the podcast? Again, we love to curate those creators and partnerships that make sense, that you can collaborate with to be a rising tide, along with helping, now that you've created amazing TikToks, how do you turn those TikToks into ads that will allow you to expand your audience and get results? And then lastly, very similar to what we've done today, we love to educate individuals and companies on how to best utilize TikTok and other platforms to really help them achieve their marketing objectives and to understand essentially how to use these tools to best promote their brand. So if you would like to connect with us, you can learn more about us at workwithjade.com. You can follow us on TikTok at Jade Media. A lot of the content we do there is for creators and how creators can be more savvy. And then you can reach out to us if this is something that you would like to do for your individual podcast, or if you would like to do a deeper dive for your team or give this to your team, you can also reach out to us at info@workwithjade. So we also included here an appendix. If you've never done TikTok, this is how to record a video, this is how to use the sound, and this is how to add text. Again, these are all clickable, and we'll send this afterwards. So we're opening it up for questions. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and allow for some Q&A. I know we have like 10 minutes left.
This was incredible, Lucy and Jillian. I hope you've been seeing how people have been blowing up the chat on how they're super grateful for all this incredibly in-depth, comprehensive information about TikTok. I got like 300% out of this, what I thought I would. We have 8 minutes, my math's correct. And I think that gives us enough time to do the top 3 or 4 questions. I'm going to go upside down, starting with Rekha's. Can you talk a little bit more about how to optimize search findability, especially with Gen Z using TikTok like Google? What an intriguing thing you shared. Thank you. Great talk.
Yeah, so I think, again, using text with intention is going to be so important. So again, how can you include a headline that includes those kind of relevant keywords? How do you make sure you're using the in-app TikTok captioning tool? And also check, I mean, maybe it's because I like rely on captioning, but check it for spelling errors, because that will, kind of mess you up. So go through, you can check in, you can edit it right within the tool. And then also within your post caption. So when you're talking about what the post is and also including hashtags, all of those things index your video for search and allow it to rise to the top in terms of people being able to find it.
Wow, that was awesome and comprehensive. Thank you so much. And great question, Rekha. Nita Jane asks another really relevant question given the times and how certain platforms are kind of shifting and how they're being used and all that good stuff. Given the recent kind of bans or policies in a few US states, are there any concerns about the future of this platform?
I mean, yes. I feel like I mean this is my political hat going on. Yes. But also my political hat staying on is that unfortunately or fortunately, I feel Congress tends to lag behind on what platforms to regulate. I feel like they just started being like, hey, what's going on over there on Instagram? So I don't know. I do think that it should be regulated more. I think that also media should be regulated more. Do I think that we're going to, if it's going to happen next year or two? I just don't see our Congress moving that quickly, or even knowing what TikTok is to even begin with. They're still arguing about Facebook. I know
That's accurate. Yeah, we're not asking you to be psychic. However, that is kind of what we're asking. That was a really good question. Oh, thank you so much, Nita, for submitting that one. Brad has 2 questions in here for the price of one. Brad asks, I prefer to use Canva, samesies. Canva is a free platform run by an amazing woman of color executive. Everybody should sign up. That's Amanda's personal plug, not TPA's, because it's easier than using the phone. Does this penalize as long as it doesn't look too slick in the sense of, creating content outside of TikTok's native tools?
I feel like if you're going to create content within Canva, if you're going to upload it, when you upload it, what TikTok elements can you add? Can you use TikTok's captioning instead of Canva's captioning? Can you add a headline to the video? I don't think that there's anything wrong with these slick videos. You just can't, people are, this audience is very savvy. So they don't want to feel like they're being sold to. They want to feel like they're being engaged and entertained. So, as long as you can add those human elements, I always recommend people to record on their phone, preferably record in the app. But if you need to upload the raw content and then use the native tools, whether they be in Instagram or they be in TikTok, to make it feel native to that platform. So that way, I can record a video being like, today I did blah, 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 blah. And then that video I just upload to Instagram, use the Instagram tools, and I upload it to TikTok and put, a headline, blah, blah, using their native tools.
Wow. Really, really good tips. I will definitely be using those as well. Also, we're told that you shouldn't recycle content like videos for TikTok and Reels. But is this really a problem as long as there's not a watermark?
Yeah, good content is good content. Do you know what I mean? I will say that I do feel like the personality of Instagram and TikTok are a little bit different. So it's not going to be one-to-one. But again, creating content, putting it online, you'll see why. These types of content tend to do better on Instagram. This tends to do better on TikTok. I don't know if there's a one size fits all. I would say I personally don't like seeing Reels with a Reels watermark on TikTok, TikTok watermark on Instagram. They do penalize each other for that. So the best way to get around it is to record it in your phone, upload it, include those native elements, and then push it out.
Lightning round. This is amazing. You have answered so many questions in like 3 minutes. I'm going to move on. Yeah, Brad's like so much amazing information in just 60 minutes. Marcia asks a question. I would love your opinion on as well. Is there a science to choosing great sounds? There's a lot of challenge in finding the right sounds to accompany content, and everybody's kind of going for that proverbial viral moment.
So I'm gonna say something that's a little bit of a hot take. So I feel, when it comes to sounds and creating viral sounds, I think that is great. I think it's great to get people in your awareness funnel, to make people aware of your content. Is that going to get you the most followers? Probably not. You'll get a lot of views, but you won't get that many followers. So I'm not saying don't focus on sounds. I think sounds, you need to include relevant sounds. And also, if you're a personal account, you can use all the sounds. If you're a business account, you're limited to commercial sounds. So there's even within those two worlds, like, can I use commercial sounds? Can I use non-commercial sounds? And I would use the sounds. So if you're just talking and you just want to put a trending video, go to that creative center I linked and just see what the top, it's Beyonce Cuff It. Include it, mute the video, and you will get the rising tide from that. If you're using like someone's voice, like, like Penn did, like, and I will, that's just something that's relevant. And you saw the sound, you're like, oh, I know how to remix that for my own personal brand. That I think makes more sense than trying to do like the dances and like, trying to, do the Uzi Vert dance. I don't know if that's necessary for what you're trying to do. But including a trending sound that's doing very well, muting it will help to be a rising tide for your sound. So if there was any science, go to the creative center and pick a sound, or pick a sound you keep seeing on your own For You page.
Absolutely. Social listening sounds like a really important element. And even though the youths are listening to Kate Bush, we don't necessarily have to use it. It's not necessarily going to drive the discoverability if you happen to use the same sound that 50 million other creatives are using as well, if I heard you correctly. Excellent. Good. I mean, I love Kate Bush, but I think it's been used. Renee, we've got to your question. And then I think this might be the last one. My question is about how to brand as myself, an individual creative, or as my product. Do I set up a business account or personal?
I do think that it depends on the person. Honestly, some people, it depends on, like, for me, for example, I have a personal TikTok account and I have a